This podcast is brought to you by Cintas, helping keep your automotive business looking great from showroom to service bay, with essentials like durable workwear, absorbent shop towels, and high-performance floor mats. Get ready for the workday at cintas.com/automotive.
Welcome to this weekend drive edition of Daily Drive for the first week of April 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in New York City. We're breaking down some of the biggest stories in the auto industry from the past week and looking forward to what's in store in the days ahead. We'll talk about first quarter sales, the highs and lows, a California court ruling regarding the Scout brand, and a snapshot of the media day at the New York International Auto Show. Joining me today, as usual, is Larry Velaquette, who covers Toyota, Mazda, and Subaru for us at Automotive News. Larry Legend, welcome back, sir.
Good to be in New York City. Kel, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. And Jack Walsworth, who covers VW Group, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz for us. Jack, thanks for joining.
Hey, Kel, hey, Larry. Good to be here.
All right, guys. So first quarter sales are in for automakers that report quarterly. The U.S. auto market is starting to lose a little momentum. First quarter sales dipped for several major automakers. At the same time, we're seeing a shift in what people actually want. Hybrids are gaining traction, while EV demand has cooled for a bit after federal incentives expired. Larry, what's your reaction to Q1?
So there are a couple things going on in the market. Number one, the March comparison was pretty brutal for a lot of automakers that still report monthly. That's because last March, we had a number of people who were pulling forward purchases out of fear of tariffs because and rising prices. So that was kind of a brutal comparison. We also had fewer selling days this month. We had 2 fewer selling days this month than we did a year ago because of how the weekends fall. So it was going to be a brutal month. On a quarterly basis, most automakers were down. A few that were up or flat. Stellantis was up slightly. Most were down. Most of the rest of the reports that we've seen so far, we haven't seen quite the full market yet. And Hyundai Kia was up as well. What we're looking at in the market, though, is rising prices. And we're looking at, from executives that I spoke to yesterday, consumers who are getting squeezed on car ownership, really from every angle, right? I talked to Dave Christ at Toyota, who's the head of the Toyota brand. He talked to us about consumers getting, facing higher car prices, higher gas prices, higher insurance prices, everything that they use, every input that they have in their vehicle, the cost is going up all at once. And not to mention, the food that they're paying for, which is also going up because of the war in Iran. So I think we are probably on the cusp of something. To me, it does not feel like a sustainable model. The one thing that Dave did tell me is that what he's seeing from dealers and what dealers are telling him is that the consumers that are coming in to buy new vehicles are more what he called have-to customers, right? They have to get another car. It's not a question of they want another car, which is what largely fuels our economy. But a case of they have to. They have a driver coming on. They had a wreck. There's some issue with an existing vehicle, and the age of vehicles is at an all-time high, continues to grow. So we're on the cusp of something, and people better be prepared.
Now, Jack, how should automakers be thinking about affordability right now? Are we hitting a ceiling where consumers just can't stretch any further? And does that force a broader reset in pricing or production strategy?
Yeah, and I think kind of to go off what Larry was mentioning with the have to, I think we're definitely hitting a point where it's tough to be buying a car right now unless you're like super wealthy. Affordability was something we heard about throughout the show. It's something that I think, like Larry said, we're going to continue to kind of keep focusing on. And it's interesting. Some brands I think are probably better suited than others to handle this. You look at like Volkswagen, for example. They talked a little bit about this yesterday. They seem to think they're kind of set up for it because most of their model lineup starts under like around 41,000. They do have some that start above that. But on the flip side of that is, that's probably on mostly margins that won't be as great. Like the Jetta, for example, that's not going to be a high margin car. So it's kind of like you could potentially be selling more of those because customers want to buy something more affordable, but you probably aren't making as much money. So, I think, like Larry said, on being on the cusp of something, something's got to give, I guess I would say. One quote that stuck out to me from our sales coverage was from Jessica Caldwell at Edmunds, Head of Insights, that the new car market is being sustained by more practical needs-based purchases rather than splurges. And, splurges would probably be better for automakers. You know, that's better for sales. But I think a lot of people just right now, unless you had to buy a car, you're probably not going to. So it'd be interesting to see how it keeps going from here. And obviously something we're going to keep tracking. In February, the average new vehicle selling price was almost $50,000. And, I feel like once we officially get over the $50,000 threshold, maybe that's the point of no return. I guess kind of to be determined. But, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because obviously you would want to have more affordable vehicles for everybody, but there's only so much automakers can do on that front.
It's funny what different automakers quantify as affordable, right? Affordable is
It's also true.
under 41,000, under 35,000.
Mhm.
I don't know what affordable is anymore. I know there are an awful lot of 72 and even 84-month loans getting offered to try and make monthly payments more affordable. And we talked about this before, months ago. It's just that's a long, long time to be paying on a car. And especially when you're not building any equity in the first place because of the depreciation off the new car lot.
Yes, the word affordability is very subjective.
Yes, it is.
So let's make a quick pivot. Now, a federal judge just handed a key win to the California New Car Dealers Association in their legal fight against Scout Motors and Volkswagen Group of America, allowing a lawsuit over direct-to-consumer sales to move forward. At the center of it is whether Scout, owned by Volkswagen Group, can bypass the traditional franchise system in California. Now, Jack, you've been following this story for some time now. What does this ruling mean for the future of the Scout brand?
I guess, put simply, I would say TBD. It's easy to think, oh, this is a huge win for car dealerships, the California Car Dealer Association, which is true. But, I think Scout probably went into this realizing that there was going to be a lot of, legal legwork to come. And I wouldn't, until this lawsuit is, officially over, it's kind of hard to really make a verdict, I guess, not to be too punny. But, I'm not sure what happens next with this, and again, it kind of depends on what the final verdict is, I guess. But I wouldn't count Scout out just yet. This is for Volkswagen Group, this is a really big deal to them. Clearly, they want Scout to be able to do what it wants to do, which is direct sales. That's the plan for now. And until we kind of hear otherwise, you kind of have to assume they're still going to pursue it. Obviously, California, if there was one car market you wanted to be able to sell in, it would be California, just given the size. And I think Scout's product portfolio would definitely fit there well. But we're kind of at the mercy of how the court system works. So we'll see. I mean, there's a few other cases throughout the country to kind of keep close tabs on. There's some lawsuits in Florida. There's some dealers in Colorado are suing the state because Scout got a license there. So I think not all the dominoes have fallen just yet. So definitely stay tuned. But it'll be, it seems like just about every other week there's some new legal update with Scout and Volkswagen. So, I'm sure I'll be talking with you again about it very soon. But, in the quick reaction, it does seem, it is notable for the California Car Dealers Association. I mean, this lawsuit can continue. That's still big for them. And, who knows where it goes from here. But the fact that it's still alive is noteworthy.
So there was also a recent move by lawmakers in Washington state that will allow Rivian to sell direct to consumers. Now, it was approved after Rivian threatened to put the state's franchise laws directly before voters. Now, Larry, how is this different than Scout?
Well, there are a couple things going on here. Number one, it's different because Rivian is not a component of a legacy automaker like Scout is. Scout is another factor of Volkswagen Group, as Jack talked about. The difference is Rivian doesn't have any existing relationships with franchise dealers, in those states where it's trying to sell direct to consumers, the same as Tesla does. With Scout, the real rub and the reason that it has Volkswagen dealers so incensed is that the products that Scout wants to introduce to the market are products that Volkswagen dealers have literally been asking for 30 years, at least, right? They've wanted pickup trucks. They've wanted SUVs like this for 30 years. And they've never gotten a pickup truck until before now. Scout comes along and says, hey, we're going to build this, but you don't get it. All of you who invested in our company over the last, how long have they been here, Jack? Almost 60 years, right?
Long time.
Long time, long time. So the difference here is the pre-existing relationships with Scout. This threat by Rivian in Washington State is really interesting, though, if you think about this. So Washington State was not going to let them do it. The dealers there were not going to let them do it. And then Rivian threatened, because Washington State allows citizen initiatives. Rivian threatened to put basically the dealer franchise laws in front of voters directly. And suddenly dealers backed down and said, and okay, the legislature approved that. It's a really interesting question. Now, not every state allows citizen initiatives, but there are a dozen states that do. And I'd be really curious to ask dealers in the dealer associations in those dozen states whether they think their franchise laws could survive direct interaction with voters.
All right, good stuff. Well, coming up, we'll recap the New York International Auto Show. That's next on Weekend Drive.
Are you a dealer creating a workplace culture your employees are proud to be part of? Applications are now open for the 2026 Automotive News Best Dealerships to Work For program. This isn't just an award, it's a chance to get real insight into what's working at your dealership and where you can improve. And we've expanded the categories this year, recognizing everything from technician experience and leadership development to AI enablement and employee retention. The registration deadline is April 17th. Find out more and apply at autonews.com.
Your day-to-day is hectic. Don't waste time juggling vendors. Cintas helps keep your auto shop looking great from showroom to service bay. Get durable workwear from your team's favorite brands, absorbent shop towels to tackle oil and grease, and high-performance floor mats to help keep your lobby clean. All picked up, washed, and returned back to you with no upfront cost required. Get a single source partner to keep you firing on all cylinders. Visit cintas.com/automotive to get ready for the workday.
Welcome back to Weekend Drive. I'm Kellen Walker with Larry Bellaquette and Jack Walsworth. So at this year's New York International Auto Show, Hyundai Group came in full force. They debuted the Kia EV3 for the first time in North America. Hyundai CEO Jose Munoz says the Genesis luxury division will be getting new vehicles and model variants, 22 total, by 2030. But the head turner was the unveiling of a new Hyundai concept, the Boulder. It's Hyundai's first body-on-frame vehicle. Larry, how competitive is the body-on-frame truck space, and what does this mean for the company's North American manufacturing footprint?
Well, if they decide to move forward with a body-on-frame vehicle, they're going to have a uphill fight. They're going to have the same uphill fight that Toyota has had, that Nissan has had. They're going into a market that is dominated by the Detroit 3 in terms of especially body-on-frame pickups, full-size body-on-frame pickups. Now, there is white space in the body-on-frame market in compact pickups. So an affordable compact pickup, the Tacoma, the Colorado, the Ranger, those are mid-size. A compact pickup is something like a Maverick, right? Where it's a smaller frame. If there is no compact body on frame vehicle. Now that's not going to have as high a margin as what a full size is, but it depends on where they come in with this vehicle. Now, what we saw with the Boulder, and you and I talked about this a little yesterday as we sat there, Kel. What we saw with the Boulder was a statue that didn't move. They lifted a curtain around it. It had a differential in the back and nothing in the front that indicated how the front wheels were going to move, right? The suspension was for show only. It did not look very real. This looked like it was really pretty. Don't get me wrong. It was a very pretty thing. It was probably 30% too big. It depends on what they're going to do with it. That's my take on it. It's going to be an uphill fight where the Detroit Three are not going to give up easily.
Jack, what's your take on the Boulder?
Yeah, so I've been going back and forth on this. I kind of have mixed feelings. On one hand, I give Hyundai a lot of credit for still bringing out a concept car. They've done that now 2 shows in a row. Kel and I were in LA, got to see the Crater. So Crater, Boulder, maybe next is Mountain. Maybe that's what they'll call the pickup. So that part is cool. At the same time, I think a lot of us thought, "Oh, that looks really familiar. Where have we seen this before?" And it doesn't take long to go back in, on the Google machine and, I think the easiest comparison is the 2004 Ford Bronco concept, which was also silver. And I guess that's kind of a quick comparison. I'm sure some other people thought maybe Hummer from the early 2000s, things like that, just given like the stance of the Boulder, those tires were, I don't know if I've ever seen bigger tires before. I mean,
37-inch tires, I
Yep.
believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yeah,
there are some big boys.
the grill looks a little jeepy with the slants. So I guess the thing I struggle with is it's cool they brought a body on frame SUV concept. I just would have liked something a little bit more unique or more Hyundai. I realize it's 2026. There's only so many ways you can design a body on frame SUV. That's not Hyundai's fault that there's been, several decades of Broncos and Jeeps and all that good stuff, even Scouts. And Hyundai doesn't have that heritage in that space to really lean off of. There wasn't a Boulder 30 years ago to kind of resurrect. I kind of would have liked to have seen something a little bit more uniquely Hyundai, which I'm not sure what that necessarily would have looked like. I just don't think that what we saw is what I envisioned. I also thought of like the Santa Cruz concept when that was first shown at the Detroit show. It was kind of like this sleek pickup, and then what we got was a little kind of funky. I've met a couple people that drive Santa Cruzes and they love them, but when you see them on the road, it's not like the greatest looking thing. I think like the way Ford did with the Maverick looked a little bit more put together. So I am curious, like if Hyundai does go through with the Boulder, what segment it is, how big it is, things like that. Because if it comes down the road 3-4 years and it's like a smaller thing, that might work. But then how will the proportions be? Things like that. So I guess long story short, I give credit for Hyundai for bringing out a concept. That's cool. The fact that they kind of kept it very under wraps until they revealed the curtain is also kind of neat. That's kind of like auto show of yesteryear type thing. But I'm just like, oh man, it's just like another big boxy SUV that looks kind of like a Bronco.
Do you guys think we're a little jaded though when it comes to reveals at this point? Because yeah, okay. I was gonna say like we've been let down a lot. Okay, and I remember was it 2 years ago, Larry? Was it 2 years ago the unveiling of the Ram EV that never came to market?
Yeah.
And it was just full of bells and whistles, had all these things, and had the inductive charging, the Roomba that comes out and it goes and charges, all this stuff. I like the Boulder. I thought it was cool. It's a concept, so like I don't get my hopes up too much because it's concept. It's when people spitball a bunch of things and say, all right, let's just put it into one thing, show it, and then show people like, hey, these are the future possibilities, right? So
yeah,
I've learned now being in this industry not to get my hopes up.
So what's interesting, and the point that Jack made, we ought to talk about why automakers don't do as many concepts as they used to, right? They now have better feedback mechanisms with the internet than what they used to. You mean concept cars used to be, they used to do a concept car every show, and almost every automaker did one because they needed to get direct feedback from consumers on what, on how, what they thought about these designs, where they were going, etc. They don't need feedback, that kind of feedback anymore. They get it every single hour of every single day from their customers and from, the bots that are shopping, and the feedback that they get, that they can tell off the internet now and from focus groups. They just don't need to go through the expense of a concept car. Now, concept cars are still cool, and certainly auto journalists love them, and they have a place. But they are expensive toys that, like in the case of this Hyundai one, don't move very well. And you know what, Kel, you brought up, you asked about, you talked about the manufacturing footprint, and we didn't address that. And I just want to go back. Right now, Hyundai does not have a body on frame plant in North America. They don't have the ability to make a body on frame vehicle in North America. So committing to a body on frame vehicle, which is built, with a rolling chassis, and then you drop the body onto it. So you build the engine, the frame, then you drop the body onto it. as opposed to a unibody, which gets kind of built up and wrapped around it. Anyway, they don't have the ability right now. You can't build them on the same line as a unibody. The methods are different. So you have to do them differently. You need a separate line to make body-on-frame vehicles. So no matter what, if they commit to making body-on-frame vehicles, that's going to mean an expansion of some kind or redirection of some kind, one of their existing plants.
Interesting. And also, Subaru introduced its first 3-row EV, the Getaway. It's the sister vehicle to the Toyota Highlander EV. Now, Larry, you cover those two brands. What were your initial thoughts?
So the Subaru Getaway is a 3-row EV that's coming later this year. It'll have over 300 miles of range. And interestingly, it will have more power than the Highlander. And the reason it's standard, right? It'll be over 400 horsepower available at peak. The reason is that Subaru took, on the Toyota, there's a powerful front motor and a less powerful rear motor that drives the rear axles. Subaru took the powerful motor from the front and put it on the back as well, because they realized that under normal driving circumstances, which you have to read as the EPA driving cycle, which is how your fuel economy gets tested, right? How they certify the vehicle. Under normal driving circumstances, they could add that extra power for no additional cost, performance costs. Now, if you're using all that power, you're doing fast starts or you're climbing hills with this vehicle, yeah, your battery's going to drain quicker. But under normal circumstances, it's not. So they made the decision to go with the more powerful setup, which to me is fascinating that they wanted to differentiate themselves from the Highlander. Because if you look at the other two vehicles, the Trail Seeker and the BZ Woodland and the Subaru Uncharted and the Toyota CHR, which are twin vehicles like this as well, there really is no difference between them. There's a whole lot of difference between them other than a little exterior style. The cockpits are identical. So this is a really interesting choice, and I'm curious to see how this is going to play out in the market.
What were your thoughts on it, Jack? Did you like it? Confused? Wasn't sure? Loved it?
Yeah, I was, I guess, kind of indifferent. The ones they had on the show floor, one was white and one was kind of like this darker, almost purplish color. It was kind of hard to tell with the lighting. And I still think of Subarus. I think of all the body cladding, things like that. And these ones were more, the paint was kind of like, or where the cladding was painted. So it just, it's okay. The front end is interesting because there's no grille, obviously. So it's like a very large piece of, material with just the Subaru logo. So it is interesting that, for so long, Subaru didn't have large crossovers. They had tried with the Tribeca that didn't connect. They finally brought the Ascent out. That's been around for a very long time. And now they have basically two large crossovers. So that part is interesting. And, living in Seattle, Subarus are everywhere. And even the Solterra I see quite often, but eventually people are going to grow out of that Solterra. So for the EV Subaru customer, this makes a ton of sense. And I would imagine, in certain markets, this will do very well. And it does seem lazy, but I don't like the name. Getaway. Getaway. Like, name it like the Subaru Pacific. I don't know. There's like so many more Subaru names out there, and I just.
Yeah, I gave them credit last night for not going with the Lowlander.
That is low-hanging fruit, man. Larry, Jack, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having you. Good seeing you all in person.
Yeah, it was wonderful hanging out with you guys this week.
That's all for this weekend drive edition of Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. You can get the latest news on first quarter sales results, the New York International Auto Show, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.